I'd like to invite Venkatesan Swami from JET.
Ramanuja. I actually started out by being told I had 10 minutes, and dropped down to 5, down to 2, 3. I think I'm going to add them all up. I'm going to take 20 minutes. I'll try to keep it short. I think I have a little slightly unique position in the number of speakers so far, in that I am a very traditional follower of Ramanuja. So I want to kind of approach it from that perspective, and therefore lead to what the message he had given out. So we are here because we want to celebrate Ramanuja, and we want to talk about the equality and the various things he had done 1,000 years ago in ancient India, rural India in many places, with a lot of prejudices and a lot of very rigid structures in place that he had to break, try to break. So I want to bring to attention that we cannot just talk only about equality, we are talking about his spirituality and how that led to this message. Because I think you cannot separate Ramanuja from the spiritual nature. That's what he did. That was his philosophy. So we have to look where he drew that message from. We can sit here and talk about all the acts he did, and many of people have already done that, so I don't want to go through all those details, what he did. He has done a lot of different things. But what led him to that picture? What led him to go down that path? So there's this well-known chant, mantra if you will, that says, Tvameva mata cha pita tvameva, Tvameva bandhusya gurus tvameva, Tvameva vidya dravinam tvameva, Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. What it says is that it's the chant that you are doing towards God, and you're saying, you are my mother, you are my father, you are my relation, you are my wealth, you are my knowledge, you are my teacher, you are my friend, you are my everything. It is this message that Ramanuja picked, not only from the Vedas and Upanishads, but being from Tamil Nadu, there's these 12 mystic saints, mystic poets, known as Arvas, and they gave the same message, and he drew from that same thing. Now, one of the 12 saints is a lady, her name is Andal, and she has written one verse in which she says this, Undannodu Varavel Namakku Ingu Olika Oliyadu. What it means is she's addressing God and saying, you and I have a certain relationship. This relationship, I cannot break even if I desire to. But she goes one step further. She says, this relationship you cannot break if you desire to. You may be all powerful, omniscient, everything, but even you can't break that relationship. What is that relationship that you and I have? It's the statement, right? You're my everything. So let's take one of them, because we don't want to go through all of them. There's one teacher who has gone through like 9 relationships and so on. But the one that's of importance to hear for us and for Ramanuja was the fact that God is the father or the parent, and we are the child. That means not just for one person, that's for everybody. You are God's child, you are God's child, you are God's child. Everyone is God's child. And that relationship never goes away. As an example, you can say, if you take a son or a daughter may get very angry at the mother and say, I don't consider you as my mom anymore. Our relationship is an end. It's over. You can say that, the relationship doesn't go away. It's only forgotten by one person. And Ramanuja took that message and said, we are all God's children. Every one of us is God's children. That's the universal brotherhood or sisterhood. Because if you look at the person, they are all different. So how do you draw this? How do you say everyone is equal in front of God? Because you look at it and say, okay, there's men, women, gender fluidity today, child, old person, young person, rich, poor. You see all kinds of variety, and that's just in the humans. And then if you start going elsewhere, there's so much more. How do you see this universal companionship? And one of the teachers says, if you strip the body off, it's the soul that's equal in the eyes of God. The bodies may be different, but the soul is equal in front of God. And so if you take that spirit, and that's what Ramanuja did, and he said, okay, I'm taking that as the message. That means everyone who comes to the temple, everyone who goes in front of God, everyone goes anywhere else, you, me, we're all the same child of God. That doesn't change. Every one of us is a child of God. So that is the equality. And with that, he was able to take that message and say, we cannot discriminate against this person or that person. Like everyone, when they come in front of God, they are the same person. They are the same because the soul is the same. It's equal in the eyes of God. We may say it differently, but God doesn't see you differently. And once he took that message, he was able to do all these reforms. That's the universal brotherhood. That's why today when we meet each other as Ramanuja disciples, we all say Ramanuja Dasan or Dasi or Dasa, whatever. I'm a servant of Ramanuja. But he took it one step further. It's not just servant of Ramanuja, you are the servant of everybody else. Because in everybody is the same child of God. So then how do you bring equality is a question, right? We can all speak of equality, it's just a word. We can say equality all day long, doesn't mean anything. You got to do something about it. What can you do? What can each of us do? Is to see everybody else as a child of God. Then you have no business discriminating, because in the Vedic, in the Puranic Hindu culture, God says, if you offend me, I'm not as unhappy with you as if you offend another of my devotee. There's a very, very famous Varaha shloka where he says, I will not forgive a person who offended my devotee for eons, right? Forever. So if you take that message and you say, I see everybody has a son or child, daughter or whatever, a child of God, then you cannot discriminate. And that's the message he wanted to take. And that's why when we see each other, we say, I am a dasa, because we say, I am your servant. And you say, you are my Swami, which means you are my master. Because you have to be careful, right? You still can't get rid of this body. So you can't go and tell your child, hey, you're my master, I'm your servant. It doesn't work well that way. Right? You got to be cognizant of what you're doing. But the spirit of service has got to be there. How do you serve somebody? And then you have to take it one step and say, well, everyone thinks, well, how do I serve? I can't serve because why I do something grand? No, you don't have to do anything grand. Service starts in the smallest things. What is the smallest thing you can do to serve? And if you can be in the service of your fellow human being, and that's what Chinnajaya Swami says, if you serve humankind as a service to God. So you serve your fellow humans as service to God, you serve your fellow beings in this world as service to God. That's the equality message, and that every one of us can do. Jai Shriman.
Thanks, Venkatesan ji.